Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Chronically Healthy Life show. When you hear the word chronically, do you automatically associate it with chronic disease? We all do. It's been programmed into us. But what if we flip that whole idea on its head? Let's discover how we can create chronic health in our bodies, minds, our finances, our relationships, and our whole lives. Let's jump right in. I'm Kristy Boyd Johnson, and co-hosting with me today is my very, very dear friend, Juliet Clark, founder of Superbrand Publishing. Hi, Juliet.
Hey, how are you?
I'm so excited to do this with you today.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm excited to do it.
So, our guest today is a very interesting ranch woman from Canada, and Juliet is the publisher of her books, and I've been editing them. And so Juliet and I thought it would be super fun to have her on today to interview because she's so interesting. And we've been talking so much about this kind of return to nature idea that's really permeating our society. Have you noticed that going on, Juliet?
Oh, absolutely. I think COVID really sparked this place in a lot of people that, number one, I don't have to go into the office every day. Now I can live wherever I want. So these people are driving away from the cities. Like you and I grew up in an era where we didn't have all the amenities that they have now. So these kids have grown up with this. They're not kids. They're like 30 to 50. They're moving out to smaller towns, rural areas. They're growing their chicken, worried about food sustainability. Also, they want rich, good, natural food for them and their children. They're tired of processed foods. So I'm really excited about her book and what she's doing, what she's teaching people how to can, and all of these things that are really going to make food sustainable for these people. If we ever have something happen, they are learning to be self-sufficient instead of relying on the grocery store 2 blocks away.
Yes, I actually have heard, I don't remember where I heard it, but the teacher asked the kids where food comes from, and they said the grocery store. And I'm like, yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah. So, there's a lot of that. When we went on, I grew up in Paso Robles, California, a lot of cattle, alfalfa. Well, now it's all grapes, but I remember taking the kids and we were talking about, the kids would say, the teacher would ask them, where hamburgers come from. And they would say the store. My kids, going back and forth to grandma's house, knew that they came from cows, but a lot of kids that live in the city and grow up, they don't know that.
Right. And then if the grocery store is suddenly not available, there's going to be mass panic and, what do we do? What do we do? What do we do?
So. Right. And look at just during COVID, we had like the toilet paper, was just not on the shelves. And I just read an article last week that Canadians get our toilet paper from us. So can you imagine what they went through during COVID? But it's things like that. There are statistics, and I'm not quite sure I'm getting this right, but we are 48 hours away from food riots, meaning that if the shelves are empty, people are hungry, we are 2 days away from massive chaos in the world, or in the United States, wherever you live, when you don't have those. And as someone who was evacuated during fires in California several years ago, it is really tough when you're out and like, well, what do we do for food? Well, all the restaurants are full. Now we got to go to the grocery store. There's just, you don't realize it until you're in a crisis situation that you needed this. And fortunately, I live in Mormon land here in Utah, where if you saw people's basements, you just go, wow, you could feed people for 5 years. They're very cognizant of that. So I'm kind of lucky I live in such a great community.
Yes. Well, I do know, I think in terms of the breaking of the matrix, because I think that what we're breaking isn't the world. I think what we're breaking are the systems that have been put in place to control us. And one of those systems is you have to get your food from a grocery store. That you can't. I heard this horrible story about the powers that be suing the Amish for butchering a cow and it didn't go through the FDA standards. I'm like, well, the FDA standards are not something that we really need to worry about since they're all just bought and paid for. But
there's a lot of that happens. I don't remember the name of the movie. I'll have to get it. But my son and I went to the Angel Studios new movie, and it's about a post-apocalyptic environment. And it actually showed FEMA driving up and saying, we know you have food and we need to take it. We need to distribute it. So, even being self-sufficient in those times can cause problems with people taking your food. So you just never know what's going on out there.
And I've heard so many stories from real people during disasters where FEMA came in and blockaded the food and stopped it from being distributed. And I'm like, so these kinds of systems, it's like, no, we have to, being self-sufficient, teaching our kids from young age to grow food, to cook food, to, that it's real, that it comes, I think it's super important. I have chickens living down the street from me that come into my yard every day. It's so funny. It's like I say hi to the chickens every day. And
so now all of you listening, if you're city people, you know what it's like to live in Utah and Idaho. It's pretty amazing how sustainable we are in middle America. But and that's where I fear if we get into these food crises is that these big city people, what are you going to do? You don't have the ability to do that. So I'm excited about what Dorothy's teaching. And I think there is just such a big audience for it, especially with MAHA and people getting away from the processed food industry.
Absolutely. So on that note, we're going to be right back with Dorothy after this.
An empowered life has no expiration date. We're all created to do incredible things, like conquer summits, catch big waves, and live our passions. As time goes on, our bodies begin to show signs that things just aren't as they used to be. Our energy levels decline, sleep patterns shift, and recovery slows. But our bodies are masterpieces of design, holding the potential to bounce back better than ever. With X39, we achieved something remarkable in the field of wellness and regenerative science that others could not. By utilizing LifeWave's unique patented technology, X39 uses light to elevate GHKCU, a copper peptide known to support overall health and wellness. Unlike traditional light therapy, which requires external light sources, X39 uses the body's own infrared light to naturally increase vitality, enhancing the body's flow of natural energy for improvements in strength, stamina, performance, and overall health and well-being, with the simplicity of an affordable, non-invasive, non-transdermal patch. As we age, levels of these life-enhancing elements, which are associated with wellness and longevity, begin to decline. LifeWave invested 10 years into stem cell research, which resulted in over 70 patents. X39 was born to bring to the public a product that can support wellness in an entirely new way, supporting the production of younger, healthier cells with wearable light technology. Becoming a powerhouse is easier than you think. Harness your body's natural potential to maintain youthful energy and vitality, because life comes at you fast, but it doesn't have to pass you by. Live long, live well, live young. Be the light with LifeWave X39. LifeWave.
Imagine a life where every day is fueled by energy, vitality, and purpose. Where age is just a number and your best years are always ahead. Hi, I'm Andy Nam, certified functional nutrition longevity coach, best-selling author, and international speaker. After reversing my own chronic health struggles, I'm now on a mission to help you live longer, stronger, and of course to look younger. I combine biohacking, cutting-edge nutrition, and stem cell technology to unlock your body's full potential. So no matter where your starting point is, I'm going to guide you toward a chronically healthy life. Ready to reverse aging and take control of your future? Connect with me today. Your journey to longevity starts here.
Why do 98% of beauty enthusiasts rave about coolness? It's all in the blend of ancient wisdom and modern science. Introducing Coolness Pearlescent Face and Eye Serum Cream. This powerhouse combines the antioxidative power of schisandra berries, the glow of pearl powder, and the hydrating wonders of dragon's blood extract. It's like a time machine for your skin, making it radiant, firm, and oh so smooth. Inspired by ancient Chinese traditions and backed by modern nutritional science, this serum cream is perfect for dry, mature, and aging skin. Say goodbye to dullness and hello to youthful radiance. And guess what? For a limited time, you get a free cooling eye cream applicator with your purchase. It's time to unlock your inner glow with coolness. So what are you waiting for? Treat your skin to the best of both worlds today.
Hello and welcome back to the Chronically Healthy Life Show. Our guest today is Dorothy Louise Beasley. She was raised in the Canadian Prairies, where she learned the values of hard work and community from her family. Louise has taught photography, led 4-H, and coordinated community kitchens and gardens, and is also a life mastery consultant, empowering women to keep on moving forward, doing what they can from where they are and with what resources they have on hand. She is the author of Voices from the Prairies, Extraordinary Stories of Ordinary Ranch Women, and the forthcoming cookbook, Voices from the Prairies Cookbook. Welcome, Dorothy Louise.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
We're delighted to have you here today with Juliet.
Yes, we are. And I'm going to grill you, girl. Are you doing a grilling book? No, I'm just kidding. So, Dorothy, you know, I have to tell you, Dorothy has these retreats up at her ranch too. And I was the first one this time of year to say, no, it's cold up there. See you later. But she also has wonderful ranch retreats, which maybe we can talk a little bit about. So, Dorothy, why did you write this book? And why did it take you so long to get the courage to do it? Because I know courage is a big thing with people. They're so afraid of being judged.
Well, the original idea that I had to write the book was I realized when I was out in the community volunteering that I thought a little bit differently than some of the other women that have lived in the towns. And so I thought, you know, I said, I think that ranch women have something to share. But then, you know, like I said, I thought that they had something to share, but then there was also a fear that kept, you know, coming up as that was also part of the women in the neighborhood or whatever about writing about themselves. And there was a culture within that society, and maybe like within the ranching community and the rural areas, that if a woman wrote about herself, it was like bragging about herself.
Oh.
And to tell her own story. And in most of, I helped to write, to put together 3 local history books, community history books. And it was funny because the women would write the stories, but they would write the stories about their menfolk. They hardly ever, there was the odd time where they would write the story about themselves, but very, very odd that, you know, the odd time that happened. And so there was a fear of writing, of have people writing their stories. And then there was also a fear that kept rising up on me, you know, these words that kept saying, you know, who are you to write a book? You're just an ordinary ranch woman. You know, what would you know? Who would read your book? And so I listened to those stories for 30 years before I had the courage. And I found a coach who taught me a different language, and that those words, I could rise above those words and do it anyways. And so with the help of that coach, I was able to write this book, and I am so proud of it. And I am so, I actually was encouraged to add 15 other women's stories to the book, which made it so much easier for me to write as well, to compile and put together. And I had 15 other willing women, courageous women, knowing, that they could be talked about or whatever, but they knew that their voice needed to be heard and their stories needed to be told. And the one woman, she kept saying, well, I'm just ordinary. This is just an ordinary story. And so for the whole time that I was putting the book together, I had to keep encouraging her that her story was important and it needed to be in that book. And so right up, like I say, until the very last, and I'm so proud of her, proud of all of these women for actually telling their stories.
Oh, it's the definition of courage to be an ordinary person doing something extraordinary that benefits everybody. That's amazing. I love that.
And I love that they thought they were just writing about the men folks, because knowing from when I lived on a ranch till I was about 5 or 6 years old, women muck stalls just like men do. So, when you say it's all about the men aren't doing all the work. When you're a farming family, it's a very collaborative process where everybody in the family works. So I'm kind of surprised that they would only write, well, they probably thought they were only writing about the men, but probably writing about themselves as well. So what I love about this book is these 15 women telling stories. They're not young women. So we get, and I don't want to say they're old, but they've been through a lot in ranching. And if you know anything about ranching, it's very up and down. You have good years. I would say, Dorothy, you probably have more bad years than you have good years. Would you?
Yes.
Would you say that? Yeah. So talk a little bit about these pilgrimages in the book, because what I really loved about it is there's this history component and these recipes that have been handed down from generation to generation as well.
Yeah, well, the book actually isn't it. I put it in. I wrote this sequence because these women are still alive, and they were born from 1929 up until 1950, and so these women, some of them were raised as ranch children, and so they lived with a lot of hardship. I said there was one woman in the story. They lived 40 miles from town, and there was 5 kids in the family, and the mother was sick, and eventually she died. And when she passed away, this lady that's in the book, she was 12 years old.
Oh.
And she had 4 younger siblings. And so she helped her dad to provide for those children, the rest of the children. She had to go out and work at 12 years of age, out to the neighbors, and help, cook and clean. And by the time she was 15, she was working with a threshing crew as a cook.
Oh, okay.
And so for 3 months, they lived in a tent out in the field that they had to set up every day, probably every few days, while they would do the threshing in that field, and then they would move to a different field. So they did that for 3 months. And the cooks had to be up at 4 o'clock in the morning to get breakfast ready, and they'd be up all day. And then by the time they got everything cleaned up, it was 12 midnight before they got everything cleaned up. And so this woman was 15 years old when she was doing that.
Wow.
And so, like I said, they sometimes matured more rapidly than we did. And in order to provide, that means for their family to live.
Mm-hmm.
And with ranching too, there's no hover parenting going on. It's get out the door, do your stuff, go play, please come back alive.
Yeah.
That's pretty much what it's like on a ranch. Like, come in at dinner time alive.
Yeah.
So, I know there was a lot of that there as well. Like, the part when you brand cattle, there's always a lot that happens around that the family participates. Isn't there a story in there about branding as well?
I suppose there's a few stories in there. There's actually a funny story in there about branding, but for the branding or whatever, they were off to a branding, and because all of the neighbors help each other in the branding, and so this was the same woman. She had a horse and her dad had trained this horse, and it was the only one that he used to catch the calves in order they could drag them up to the fire pit and then put a brand on them, so that so that's what the branding is all about. So the ranchers put a brand on the side of their calf when it was little to identify it as part of their herd. And so then the calves would be branded and inoculated. And then if there was too many bull calves were also castrated. So otherwise there would be too many bull calves running around breeding their mothers and, that kind of thing. So that's what needed to happen at the branding. And so anyway, she had to go on her horse. And then her mom and her that was when her mom was still alive, and her 4 younger siblings were going to go too. And so they had to, they were all dressed up in white, because at that point, men were the only ones allowed in the corral. The children and the women were not allowed in the corral. So they were all in the house helping to cook the meal. And so they were all dressed up, and they had this Shetland pony that they had, and they had hooked it up to a cutter. So that would be like a little wagon. And they put all new harness on it, and it just looked beautiful. And so the mother put the kids into the little wagon. It was big enough to hold everybody. So it's called a cutter. And then when she got in and she took hold of the reins and got the pony going, the pony just decided that this was it. I am not going to take you anywhere. I am not going. And so it just took off at high rate of speed. And it hit the one of the wagon wheels hit this lady's horse's foot, and the wagon tipped over. Oh. So it upended all of the people out onto the ground, but the pony kept going, and it just went around and around and around the yard, and they watched it, and the dad tried to catch it, and he couldn't catch it, and he said it wasn't finished until everything was torn off of the threads, and it was just in bits and pieces all over the yard, and the harness was all gone, and everything. It was just, the horse had nothing left. And then it stood in the middle of the yard, and it kind of looked back at them and said, "Ha ha ha."
My gosh!
Yeah, I love that story. Hey, I have a question.
That's why you come back alive every day.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. I have a question about the children. So obviously, when they're very, very little, the mother needs to be taking care of them. Mm-hmm. But about what age do they start being expected to contribute to chores and helping out?
Well, that could be classed as, we'll class it as learning experiences, but it could be like at the age of 4 years old, where they're told to, okay, this truck has to go back to the yard. All you have to do is steer it. I will get it started. And then all you have to do is steer it and get it back to the yard. And so that's what happens. And then they know to get it back to the yard. And then you hope, in the case that I had, that it was in a standard vehicle. And so when they hit something, then it would stop, like the motor would quit. So yes, so there was lots of hit and miss kind of things that happened, but that's how the kids learned. But they learn at a very early age how to be responsible and that they have a job to do.
Mhm. And did they, and were the girls, were they trained differently from the boys?
No.
They were, everybody knew how to do everything.
Everybody knows how to do everything.
You do everything. And you can see, I'm going to be proof of that, you guys. I don't know if you can tell, I've got one finger shorter, got my finger caught in cattle racks. You can't reach in there. It's going to cut it. And my hair got caught and I went to reach it. And so you do everything. Yeah. Like it's not, it's very different.
Yeah.
Kids have a lot of responsibility. So Dorothy, you're teaching people now. I want to talk a little bit about that because it's so important. How to grow different plants, how to grow vegetable gardens, but most of all, canning, because nothing on a farm goes to waste. Can you talk a little bit about that? Like nothing goes to waste.
No, like I said, especially back in the day, when there wasn't any freezers and fridges and that kind of thing around, then the women canned everything because that was the best way to preserve it. And so, like the women in this book, like they canned about 200 quarts of vegetables every year from their garden, as well as meats. Like they canned all their chickens. Like the one woman tells the story of, she said, I always raised 200 chickens. And then she said, I would butcher all those chickens and then can them. So she had over 200 jars of canned chicken. And the same with their beef and all that kind of thing, because I said that, a certain amount they could store in a like ice shack, but not for long periods of time. That would just be for eating right away. Mm-hmm. And so then they would have to can it otherwise, as well as wild berries. They would go out and pick wild berries, and they talk about like there's doing 38 quarts of wild Saskatoon berries and canning them, began to keep them, and then as well as making jams and jellies and just doing everything with a pressure canner and or a hot water bath canner. So that was their means of keeping their food, and then they always knew that they had food. I said they could just go to their shelf and be very, very self-sufficient and felt very happy that they were going to be able to feed their family for the winter.
Yeah. Especially as harsh as the winters are where you are. In California, my grandmother had a root cellar, but that was very that's very old fashioned. I think that house still has a root cellar. In it too.
And it used to be like in the houses that they built underneath the house, and then that would be their root cellar as well. So then they were able to keep like their potatoes and their carrots and those kind of things. But there's some things that you can't store in a root cellar, so you need to can or do something else with it. Mm-hmm. And so they say they did all of that kind of stuff, and it was a ways of knowing that they weren't going to go hungry.
I remember that both my grandparents are from Wisconsin and Minnesota, so harsh winters, and they both had root cellars. Both my grandmothers canned everything. And I remember going down into the basements and looking at these shelves of all these foods, and also the big water cisterns to catch the rainwater down there.
Right, for sure. Yeah, they preserved a lot of things, and that made it. And that's what they had to do as well, because they said most of the time these places didn't have running water, and so they had to bring the water from the rivers or whatever happened to be close, or in the wintertime they had to make water out of the ice that came from the snow.
Right.
And so the same kind of thing. And so then ways to preserve that and to use it and reuse it. And they used the lard from the pigs to make, to make soap. Mm-hmm. And, all those things, like nothing was wasted.
Right.
What's
On
the-
that note, we're going to take a pause here, everybody. So come back and join us after this. We'll be here with Dorothy, Louise, Beasley.
Welcome to a reimagined world where kids can't wait to go to school, beg for books to read, math is an exciting game, and teachers get to love teaching again. Meet Kristy Boyd Johnson. She's been in the trenches and emerged with the keys to making education a fun, free, and inspiring experience. Email her at barefootlearningclub@gmail.com and chat with her one-on-one. Her philosophy? Foundation plus imagination equals genius.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Kids Corner. Our guest today, Dorothy, is talking about ranch women through the ages and into today. And I started thinking about how absolutely cool it is, the skills that they have to grow food, preserve food, and etc. I got to thinking, how cool is it that to be bringing this skill back into school with our kids, like learning how to grow a garden, learning what vegetables grow well together, what plants naturally deter pests and make them go away from your garden and stuff like that. And then on top of that, harvesting the vegetables, like say you're growing carrots and you take the carrots out of the ground and then you turn around and you use those carrots in a meal. That skill is a life skill that has been literally taken away from us by the industrial age, in which they just wanted people to work and not think about their homes and their families. They wanted them to think only about their work. So I'm very rebellious against that idea. I personally feel that schools try to force our kids into that mold. And look what's happening. Our kids hate it. They hate school. They blame their teachers. The teachers are in the same boat with the kids, but the kids don't know that. They don't realize that most teachers are suffering just as much as they are. And it's a system that's artificial and designed to keep you under control. So we can start in the simplest way just by planting a backyard garden. There's lots and lots of information out there about it growing into our gardens, even if you live in a small space. So I encourage you to bring that skill back into your life as much as you possibly can, because it will benefit everybody and it will also create that sense of community and closeness that we're all craving. All right, ciao for now. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Chronically Healthy Life show. We're here today with my fabulous co-host, Juliet Clark, and our guest, Dorothy Louise Beasley, author of Voices from the Prairie. And so let's go back to our discussion. We're into a very interesting discussion about literally living with the land, in harmony with the land. So I think I interrupted you, Juliet. You were going to ask Dorothy a question?
Oh, yeah. Talk a little bit about your canning courses that you're putting together, because I think that is one of the skills that I know. I think I'm probably going to end up taking your course. I used to do with my grandmother, but I don't as an adult. And just a lot about, what can you can, what can't you can? It sounds from what you said a few minutes ago, like you can can just about anything.
That's true. I said almost anything. The only thing that I've read about that you shouldn't can is cabbage. Anything that ferments, it probably should be fermented first before you actually can it, because otherwise the carbon dioxide comes up into your jar and bursts the seal. But other than that, you can can all of your vegetables, any vegetables that you can grow in the garden. You can can beans and peas, and you can can carrots, make pickles. You can even can potatoes. I didn't realize that until just recently. But they said somebody had canned it and they had left the peels on them. but they said that they will, that's not the best way to do it, because they will eventually spoil within the jar with the peel still on. But peel the potato first, and then you can can it as well. So you can can all of those kind of vegetables, which are low acid vegetables, with a pressure canner. And so in this course that I'm teaching, it'll be giving you all of the safety guidelines for canning with a hot water bath, as well as with a pressure canner. And there's 2 or 3 different kinds of pressure canners that you can use, as well as an electric pressure canner. If you were going to do a lot of vegetables, then that might be a good idea to use one of those. The hot water bath canning is all about canning with high acid vegetable or fruits and things such as pickles. So you add vinegar to the pickles, so that makes it a high acid item that you can in the hot water bath, as well as you can make jams, and you can can your berries and all those kind of things in the high acid hot water bath canner. So.
Yeah, and I want to mention the safety is so important, because, unless you have that uncle you don't like, you don't want to give botulism to the entire family. So talk about that safety and why it. Well, I think I just told you why it's so important, because if it's not right, you're going to kill somebody. My cooking could kill somebody anyway, but.
Well, it's especially important when you're going to preserve anything for a long period of time. You want it to be safe, and things can last in a can actually for up to 5 years, and so you want it to remain safe at all that time, like most things that are eaten within 18 months. But that's why you want to cook all of those vegetables, like your beans, your carrots, the potatoes. Most of your vegetables would be with a high pressure, or your pressure canner, where you want to take it up to 10 pounds, or at least 10 pounds of pressure, and then you cook it for a long period of time at that pressure, so that you've killed all of the viruses and the germs and everything that's in the, that could be in the food, to from just picking it up out of the garden, so to speak. And then you're washing your vegetables and that kind of thing. Like, that's also a really good safety measure, is to make sure that your vegetables are really, really clean before you begin the canning process. And so that make sure you scrub all of the dirt and that kind of thing off of them, and make sure that they're clean. And then I like to cook them a little bit first too, before, so that they're kind of, there's a cold pack way of doing it, as well as a hot pack. And I like doing it with the hot pack, because then you've already killed some of the things that are happening that are not going to happen any longer in that jar. And then you add a teaspoon of salt, and then you pack it into the jar, seal it, put it into the pressure canner, and then you have to watch your pressure canner until it gets up to that 10 pounds. I have charts. There'll be charts, and all those kind of things, and safety guidelines in the canning course, as well as safety measures as to how to use your pressure canner, so that you're not going to blow the lid off of it. There's lots of people that, if you don't watch the pressure canner, it'll go up to way too much pressure, and it'll blow the lid off, and everything in the canner goes all over your ceiling and everywhere else. And so it can hurt someone if they're, if that lid, if you think about the pressure and that lid coming off of that pressure canner, it could kill, it could even kill somebody if there was a small child or something that was near that pressure canner at that point. So in the canning course, I have all the safety guidelines in there for you to follow, It's an online DIY, fully automated. So there'll be videos with all of the information in there for you to follow through with. And at any point or time, I said, if you want to get a hold of me, you can email me and, ask questions, that kind of thing. You can go on to grandmaskitchen.ca and on the website, as well as on dorothybeasley.com website, where you will also find, the information there so that you can talk to other people that are also doing the canning, because we want to form a kind of a membership so that you can do a forum and support each other as well. And so this
I'm going to interrupt you there, Dorothy, because I can personally attest that the cookbook has the directions as well.
Okay.
Yeah. But back to the stories of the ranch women. I'm interested in what you were saying about the differences between the men and the women. The children are kind of learn everything, but do men and women do different things as adults on the ranch? Do they divide up stuff, or do they ever all pitch in with everything all the time?
Most all the time, everybody does everything. It doesn't seem to matter. Like I said, in the past, I said that like I said, the men used to do the branding at the branding time and that kind of thing. But up now, I said that everybody pitches in. The children are there. The women help probably. There's probably more women at the branding than there are men.
So we have growing the food, harvesting the food, branding, cooking and canning, and that kind of thing. What other kinds of chores and experiences?
Well, driving tractor, like I said, we all help with driving the tractor. We all know how to do that. If machinery needs to be moved from one field to another, I said we even take food out to the field, because then they don't have to come back into the field or into the house to eat. And so there is a lot of work in that respect. And let's see what else. You like chasing cattle. Like say, like I haven't ridden a horse for a long time, but I used to have to be on the horse all the time as well, and helping to chase the cattle into the different pastures. And like even now, like I said, sometimes if we have to be on a road, we have to cross a road, like a busy road or something, then I have to go ahead of time and stop all the vehicles from coming, so that the herd can go across the road, and then the vehicles can go by afterwards. So,
and in there's also a lot of animal care, because horses require a lot of care. And I'm sure you have, besides cattle and horses, you've got maybe sheep or chickens or goats or cats and dogs, or that all have to be cared for as well, right?
I guess I had chickens when we were when the kids were younger. We had goats because my kids were were allergic to goats, to cow's milk, so I milked goats. We had cats and dogs, and like there was a lot that kind of thing. You milked a cow usually, and so I said that happened all the time. And with these ranch women's stories, most of them had milked a cow. And the one woman had milked a cow. She milked 2 cows, and then she said that she had to run back and forth. She used to have to milk half a cow and then run back into the house. She had 3 kids under 3, because she had a set of twins, and she had to run back into the house to check on the kids, and then run back out to the barn to milk the rest of the cow. And she did that for 4 times while she was milking the cow, before she could actually be back in the house. And she said sometimes she did go back into quite a mess. Sometimes they got into the syrup, or they got into and everything was all over the place. And she said sometimes it was quite a mess, but she did get the cows milked anyway. So.
But there's other stuff too, like the kids can muck stalls. They can did you have alfalfa, Dorothy? Do they have to do any hay baling? I know the machines pretty much do it today, but
Yeah.
Feeding the chickens, watering the livestock. What else is in there?
Yeah, the kids are like I say, they're busy as long as they can walk and talk, then they're out there observing and seeing what needs to be done. So they, I mean, like you say, they start with the young, the smaller livestock, so they'll gather the eggs and learn how to feed the chickens and those kind of things. And then as they get older, then they can go out to the fields with their parents and watch them feed the animals in the wintertime. And then our kids were also in 4-H. So they had a project animal that they had to go out and feed every day before school. And every night before they had supper, they had to go out and feed these animals. So because they realized that somebody had to do it. And that had become their responsibility. And so that was the good thing about that I believe about ranch children is they learned, the value of responsibility and doing it properly, because otherwise it could mean the life or death of an animal.
Mm.
And it's not like, when they have those classes in high school where you carry a baby everywhere.
Right.
It's a little bit like that, because a lot of these kids, 4-H, FFA, they have projects where they have to raise that animal from small all the way up to the time when they take it to market at the local fairs and things like that. So it is a big project. They learn to do all of this care and feeding and nurturing from a fairly young age. When do they start 4-H? I think FFA is a high school thing, isn't it?
Yeah, this one I think is they have to be 10 years old now. Like they can start when they start with a baby calf or whatever, I think now when they're 7 or something. And so they can just start and learn how to, pet it and that kind of thing. And that, but yeah, so, but like I say, when they actually have to start feeding it, I think they're 10 years old. And then, which is, it's young, but I said it's a good thing. And it used to be the same when they were milking a cow. They used to have to learn how to milk the cow at a young age. So they would go out with their parents and then the parent would start teaching them how to pull on the tits to milk the cow. Mm-hmm. And then that would be their job. Like I remember I'm milking a cow. I milked 2 cows before I went to school every morning. And I think I was maybe 10 or 12 when I started milking. And then that was my job. So it's a good thing. And then, like you said, you get out in the fresh outdoors, and they all learn how to ride a horse, so they know how to, like my daughter, I said, with riding the horse or whatever, I remember that her dad used to just go out and leave her out in the field, and with the horse, knowing that the horse would just bring her back. Saddle back, and there was and the woman in the one story here, and then she says the same thing, like the horse knew what to do. Yeah. And so the horse brought the cattle back, and she came back safely as well. So I mean, that's a generational thing, and so that's what the ranching is all about. It's teaching the next generation about what to do, and that's what's been happening for many generations, and it's such a good thing. And so I think we need to get back to that within the general way of living too, is to teach our young children what we're doing, and give them a responsibility and something to do, something to be proud of. Because like when they were finished with their 4-H projects and they went to the achievement sale or whatever, and their calf had gained weight, they were proud.
Yeah, because they were feeding them and they were appropriately growing.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. And they knew that they had accomplished something. It was a beautiful sense of accomplishment.
I absolutely love this, because I am right on this same page. And Dorothy, this has been an amazing discussion, and with Juliet as well. So you kind of briefly told us how we can find you. The QR code goes to your website to contact you. Is that correct?
Yeah, grandmaskitchen.ca will be the QR code. Mm-hmm. And
then on YouTube, that you have some video out on YouTube.
Yeah, it's on. I have actually have cooking shows. I think 3 cooking shows that I did online a few years ago. They're very amateur, but
Are we all?
Yeah, we are. The other
Or-
thing too is if you go to her website, she has the information about the ranch retreats as well. So if you maybe want to experiment a little bit before you go all in of moving into the city, this is a great way to go up and learn a little bit about gardening, get some of that fresh air. She does meditations. Ranchers are the ultimate ecologists when it comes to, sustainability on the land. So you really could learn a lot by going to one of those retreats as well.
Absolutely. In the summer, because it is Canada.
Yeah, because it is Canada. And I don't know what the heck you were thinking having one in March. Like, that's like frozen tundra, Dorothy.
It was, it was warm here. It was about probably 60 degrees here a few days ago, and now they're talking about snow today.
I know. Same here.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, ladies, so much. It has been such a pleasure talking with you today.
Yeah.
And everybody stay tuned. Right after this, we'll be right back.
Thanks, Kristy. Thanks, Juliet.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Chronically Healthy Life show. Please join us next week when we will have health coach Shoshana Kayam. And join us here on Friday at 7 p.m. Central Time. You can watch past episodes at e360tv.com, in the Vitality TV network, or on our YouTube channel at Chronically Healthy Life. If you'd like to know more about what we do and how we can help you live a chronically healthy life, visit us on our website at chronicallyhealthylife.com. If you want tips to living longer, make sure to download our free book at longevityisthenewlword.com or set up a free 30-minute consult at longevitywithandy.com. If you have any comments, questions, or suggestions about our show, including questions for me for Kids Corner, you can comment on our Facebook page, Chronically Healthy Life, or email us at anything@chronicallyhealthylife.com. Juliet, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. It's always fun.
It's always fun. And we will see you all next week. Ciao, everyone.